Hello, denizens of Arden. My name is Shoal.
Hey everybody, Rob here.
Comment, guys. I'm Weaselman.
And we are the Sunderfellows. We've been ranking various aspects of the game of Sunderfolk on tier lists. If you'd like to see some of our previous videos, there's a link in the top right. Today, at long last, we'll be ranking the Rogue. Shout out to Hydra005 keeping track of our days without the Rogue tier list in the comments. This one's for you, buddy.
As to an explanation to Hydra and those who were waiting for it, we wanted to tier rank the Rogue earlier, but because he was shrouded, we couldn't find him.
He's really sneaky. As a reminder,
Vanguard took him.
as a reminder, the Vanguard took him. Yeah. As a reminder, we rank on a 5-tier scale from S to D. S tier being game warping, uniquely powerful, or encounter altering in several situations, widely applicable. A being the gold standard, effective in many situations, you will consider using it most of the time. B is old reliable, not breaking any encounters, but decently effective and pragmatic. C is where things start to fall off a little in the niche tier. You might have 1 or 2 situations where this is a good effect, but there are often better options. And finally, the D tier, lacking, never more than okay, almost always irrelevant or overshadowed, or else actively prohibiting other better abilities. With that, I think we can jump into it.
Right, as the resident rogue main here, I'm going first for today. So, I'll start off with something that's a bit controversial again, or situational. We'll start with Pennypinch, and I'm ranking Pennypinch in the C tier.
Ooh.
Alright, so, what is the use case for Pennypinch, and why is it in the C tier? Why is it only situational? So on the surface, this is actually a solid card. You get to move 4, and then you get to have an attack 6 boosted by Shroud. Plus, you get some drops. It's eerily similar to the first card that the Rogue gets, Slice Twice. But why am I ranking this in the C tier? So a couple of things. Number 1, as we mentioned earlier, Slice Twice is a first card that the Rogue gets. And that card is slightly better than this one. Why? Because the Rogue, being a melee character without any sort of range, would prefer to have their move in front, to be front-loaded, instead of split equally from front and the back. Second of all, while the damage is similar for both cards, you could say, well, isn't Pennypinch better? It could actually drop you some loot. So I consider that the loot drop, or the gold drop, while good, is not as important as having a front-loaded move. And eventually, once you get to, let's say, mid-Act 2 to late Act 3, or to early Act 3, you're not going to need as much of the loot drops anymore as you finish up, upgrading your bug pens and accumulating gold. Again, I'm assuming here everybody started their first purchase with a Horde Heart for weapons, and assuming again everybody has, selected the post office as their first town upgrade, just to boost that gold and loot drops at the start. So, what's the value here? It's simply good at the beginning of the game when you don't have all of the good cards yet, and you'd want to increase, your loot drops. It's good when the enemy is not too far away, it's a bit closer to you, you can just kill them, get the loot drops with your excess move at the end of the skill. That's it. That's all the value there is to it. It's just to increase your gold and loot drop count.
Totally agree with Pennypinch. I feel like it's a worse Slice Twice. I've never needed it, so maybe there's an argument for me it goes in the D tier, but I think the attack 3s, you get 2 extra damage over Slice Twice, but then Slice Twice has the +2 if you have Shroud, so you actually don't. They're equivalent in damage.
Equal,
yeah, it's pretty equal, assuming you have Shroud up, which, to be fair, I'll use Slice Twice as an opening card sometimes. But Slice Twice is perfect, and I'm not going to touch it right now. We'll talk about it when we get there. I will pick... Oh, man, which one am I going to do? I'm going to do Soulthieve. I really like this card. I think I'm going to put it... I don't know if it sneaks into S for me. I'm going to put it very high A for now, I think, is where I want it. This card... So, it is unique, in a sense, because of the steel buffs. I like the move 4, This is your big spend card, by the way. This isn't a card that you're like planning to run away after. This is the I am going all in, probably on the boss. And where this card becomes really applicable is the final act, which I think is when you get it. I think it's the last card you pick up with the rogue.
Right.
So it's actually a great card for that timing because you're going to start facing boss encounters and even some of the regular missions, but especially the boss encounters, which there are 2 of in the final act, which you're not always going to be able to keep your shroud up just because of the number of enemies and like the fact that you are going to be bombarded. The bosses are going to take a turn for every one of the character turns. You're probably getting hit. So Soulthieve closes the gap, not only because it allows you to do a lot of damage on turns where you don't have shroud up, but also especially because bosses build so many buffs, especially on Shadowstone difficulty, which we're ranking for. Frenzy gives enemies hasten and strengthen every time they get hit. So every time they get hit, they're generating 2 buffs that you can steal. Now, Soulthieve at base value is doing 3 damage, plus maybe 4 from your passive, if you have it up, but again, you probably don't. But it makes up that difference with the plus 2 from each buff you steal, so that's an additional 8 damage, so it's 11, and then on top of that, you're probably stealing some strengthens, which is going to give you like 13, 14, 15 damage on average. I've gotten Soulthieves that do as much as like 23 damage, and it's not super hard to do. It just depends on the boss, and also you're depriving them not only of their frenzy bonuses, but probably shield. Like the Lich loves building shield.
Right.
This is such a good execute card on the Lich, but even before that, you can deal some really solid damage on the Lich if she is running extractors. And yeah, I really like this card. It's clutch in a lot of big, important situations. It's almost always my 5th card. I sometimes use it as my 4th card. It depends on kind of the loadout I have, but yeah, it depends on when you get that 5th card upgrade. But anyway, yeah, I'll leave it there.
So I was trying to find the right meme format. I don't remember it, and Joel, you might be able to put this in editing. It's the one where like the top photo is the guy like kind of like distancing himself away from the camera with the orange background, and then when he sees the bottom one is like when something changes and it gives him a thumbs up afterward. That's how Soulthieve is when you go from basic Sunderfolk to Shadowstone, because oh my god, this card gets so much better in Shadowstone.
Shadowstone, yeah, it's not currently imbalanced. It doesn't.
Yes, imbalanced. It is Weenie Hut Jr.'s level of power, and then once you enter Shadowstone and you're like, oh, my entire party's taking 10 less damage now thanks to me, then you're like, oh crap, yeah, Soulthieve rocks. Like, this card's great. It reminds me actually a lot of some cards we've also already ranked in A tier. Notably, it reminds me of stuff like Fling and Inspire Harmony, where they're really good in like a specific situation but still applicable elsewhere, where Soulthieve is obviously a kingly ability when it comes to bosses, but it's also applicable in other situations. Like, there are other characters such as Revenants that have such high HP pools that it's going to be tricky to take them out without a nuclear option, or stuff like the Shadow Clones, for example. They have such high HP pools that trying to take them out and trying to maintain your shroud is really difficult. So sometimes you need an option that allows you to hit hard despite not having shroud, and this serves as a functional use for that. So I think both these tier rankings make sense. I'm gonna follow up on Rob. Thank you for the alley-oop here, my friend. And I'm going to rank Slice twice. I am going to be ranking Slice twice, I think, in B tier. For me, Slice twice is the bread and butter ability that makes everything in terms of the rogue's early to mid-game natural capability function. And even a bit into late game is one of the 3 starting abilities that I would actually take somewhere into late game. The other 2 being the Arcanist Thunderclap, and the last one also being the... oh, what was the other one? Not Pyro. Why am I blanking on this?
Berserker Long Haul,
Not
maybe?
Berserker.
No.
Hold on, let me pull this up here.
Yeah.
Let me pull, Wiki, save me!
I know it's not the Bard.
No, it's not. No.
Could it be?
No, it is just the other one. No, that was just gonna be. I I might have been mixing it up with Mana Spring, but that was because it's forced. Anyway, editor clips out. I do think that Slice Twice is incredibly functional. The fact that it's an attack and it hits twice and into a move means that if you have Shroud and are within range of the enemy, you are probably clicking this button. So it's a fairly solid option that supports the main kind of game plan that the rogue is trying to shoot for. And a lot of people would be like comparing to Pennypinch, well, what if that move 2 at the end was actually better? Because what if you could get further away and manipulate the AI so that they hit someone else so you keep your Shroud? Just use an ally. Or just use Chandelier. Like, there are solutions to this problem with like items that are some of the best in the game, and Slice Twice is able to be more consistent and is therefore more effective for a melee character.
So I agree with your points here. For me, though, I think between Soulthieve, I mean, I don't disagree that Soulthieve could be A tier, but between Soulthieve and Slice Twice, I actually use Slice Twice more. So I'm actually pondering if I'm going to move it. So here's the argument first before I move it. I was thinking Soulthieve is great, but a couple of things. One, your Shroud is very similar to the Ranger's passive, that it deals a lot of damage when, you know, there are multiple attacks, right? Just like Volley. So in essence, if you're not facing a boss, Slice Twice is going to do more damage than Soulthieve. Because most likely you're just going to hit the enemy for 3 plus the Shroud damage, plus if there was any buffs on that enemy. If it's not a boss, most likely it'll have like 2 in Shadowstone. You get 1 haste buff, 1 strength buff. And you're probably going to hit about 10 damage outside of a fake card. Slice Twice, on the other hand, is going, if you have Shroud, is going to hit for 14 before Fate. So it just really deals a lot more damage. It's a common opener. This is the card I usually use as an opener the most, because at the start, I don't want to waste a move trinket just to use another like a Smoke and Mirrors, an attack then move card. Or I don't have Shroud yet, so I'm not going to use Sneak Attack. So this is the usual opener. So I find myself using this more, and in Soulthieve I would use in boss fights specifically. So while I agree with the points that Comet made on Slice Twice, I would add that its functionality and usefulness as an opener makes it more usable than Slice Twice, and I'm going to move it ahead of Soulthieve in the A tier.
Okay.
So I consider Soulthieve a bit more. It's great in its situation, but it's more situational. If you're just facing normal enemies, Slice Twice does more than Soulthieve.
Yeah, honestly, I'm very fine with that. Slice Twice is very good on the rogue. I keep it in my deck the entire playthrough. The fact that it's a move 3 and then move 1 is just so synergistic with like get in range, do the attack, use your pass or get your passive off. And I love it as a setup card. It's also a great damage spend. Like, it is applicable in many situations. You can divide the damage over 2 enemies, or you can stack it all on 1, and it's very respectable, even in late game. I completely agree. It's an A tier card for me. I really enjoy using it. So I will go with Greed is Good. And I'm actually going to put Greed is Good. Shoot. Hang on. Do I put it ahead or behind of Slice Twice? I know I put it ahead of Soulthieve for myself. I think I'm going to put it behind Slice Twice. I use it a lot. It is such an excellent movement card. You're not really ever using this for the attack. There are very few occasional situations where, like, I do, but most of the time it's my Traverse the Map card. And it's such a good Traverse the Map card because it encourages you not only to pick up all the gold and loot that you want to be picking up to snowball your economy. And by the way, I often run Horde Heart on the rogue because I think he benefits from it the most, or arguably the most than any other character, primarily because of Greed is Good. I don't run Pennypinch because Greed is Good is there, and if I'm running Horde Heart, I'm just going to be zipping around picking up stuff anyway on the turns where I'm not doing damage spends. And this sets you up for big damage spends. The strengthen every time you pick up an object is great. And then interacting, the refund, it's more circumstantial. Like, there's not going to be a chest on every mission. There's not going to be the opportunity to open the chest on every mission, or at least on every turn you're using Greed is Good. But, like, it's there. It's nice. I think Greed is Good is such a good movement card, and I wasn't running this when I first started playing the Rogue, and then I was like, wait, no, this is so cracked. Like, this is better than Bring It On for, like, movement purposes. This is better than, like... Okay, it's not better than Speed... I know, I call it Speedweed, the
Staring
Rangers...
Vines.
Staring Vines, yeah. But it's, like, it's up there. It's really up there for me.
Just had to get that chip on the shoulder of Bring It On, huh?
Bro, I love Bring It On, man. I'm doing my Berserker Hero Guide right now. I'm talking all about it. It's a great card.
In terms of direct mobility from A to B, I believe this is the second best card of its kind in the game. Staring Vines just solely for the fact that it's like essentially a move, like, what is it, like it's like a move 8. Like, it's crazy. But this, in terms of setting yourself up for the rest of combat, is very unique. Like, this is something that's very effective for getting you A to B, and especially with Horde Heart, with how common it is to grab that weapon. It's just a nice tool that synergizes with something that you ideally want in your party anyway, and it's pretty much also, like, the only mobility option for 5 move in the Rogue's entire kit. It's something very unique to it, and it doesn't surprise me that you take it every time. I think it's fairly solid as well. I'm just gonna be boring. Okay, yeah, whatever. Sneak attack is S. And the reason
Everybody
sneak
can see
attack
from a
is
mile away.
sneak attack is S. I know, I'm here with the craziest takes. I'm getting flashbacks and deja vu from when I ranked Skull Rattle in Ranger. But it's actually S tier for a lot of the same reasons. Where sneak attack is just or almost not quite as consistent, but it when designed and with a enemy AI in mind, is one of the single most consistent stuns in the entire game. Like, it's very consistent to get that stun as long as you have Shroud, and with stuff like Oozewhack Chandelier Slimes, with stuff like allies that you could summon, or even just positioning
from the bear.
Yeah, or you provoke from the bear, or positioning from your allies. Like, it's not hard. And maybe this is also a little bit of recency bias speaking in, but we also just got another melee class that is willing to take hits in the form of the Vanguard that a lot of people are playing right now because they're testing with it. So if you're talking the current meta, sneak attack is somehow even better than it already is. And the other thing about sneak attack too is that it's got the move 1, just like Slice Twice does. So not only is this a stun effect on inside of the Rogue's kit, which it also does not have and is barely recreated by other characters, sans maybe Pyrotechnics from the Pyro, and we know which of the two is better between these two. I think that sneak attack is just able to set up proper positioning and stuns, with the move 1 at the end to just make sure you get your Shroud again. It's one of the few times where you can play as the Rogue, attack, and be guaranteed without any help from anyone else that you'll get your Shroud and keep it, which I think is super important for the Rogue, especially just in mission-to-mission runs. It may not be the all-star on bosses that Soulthieve is, but damn, that consistency is hard to ignore.
I think sneak attack is the all-star versus bosses. It's what allows, like quick runs in Shadowstone, even while playing just duo or trio, because you prevent the boss from attacking, and along with dealing a bunch of damage. I think that and Skull Rattle Shot pretty much, can chain stun the boss, and it's the easiest time you're gonna have playing with less characters in Shadowstone. If you have a rogue or a ranger in the party with Skull Rattle Shot and sneak attack, the boss is never going to get a turn in. So, pretty much it's an all-star against the boss as well. You could use Soulthieve as a killer, perhaps, or if there's like more players in the party and somehow the boss isn't stunned, but when the boss is continuously stunned, it just keeps it going and they're never going to get a turn. So anyway, I wanted to comment that, but I also wanted to comment a couple of things on Soulthieve and Greed is Good. Soulthieve in particular, I just remembered that Shoal mentioned earlier that how useful this is in Act 3. I want to point out as well that there are missions wherein you're going to have some allies, let's say like Chirp, where you have to protect him. And then the move that he does on his turn is like stacking a bunch of shield on himself. It's actually great to actually move beside Chirp, steal the bunch of shields, and then turn around and attack an enemy. turn it on and attack an enemy for a bunch of damage. So he's like a buff factory. So those kinds of effects, or any of those missions wherein if you pet the, you pet the bug, or they one of their moves is to cast shields on themselves. Soulthieve is perfect because you can steal those buffs from allies, and then use it to damage the enemy. So that's another great effect that Soulthieve has, and also that among most of the rogue's cards, Slice Twice only hits 3 movement, so it's kind of like the best reach card that the rogue has. Well, tied with Myriad Blades, but it's the
tied
only one
with
that can reach 4.
tied also with Isolate.
Oh yeah, and Isolate. Okay,
Isolate's
and then lastly, on Greed is good. So once you reach Act 3 and you have, like a bunch of gold already, you don't need any more gold. You can easily switch to Spore Scion, and then it's gonna sprout, all of these mushrooms. And then again, Greed is good is gonna turn that into strength buffs. If you have a bard in the party and then you have a bunch of notes all over the place, Greed is good is gonna turn it into a bunch of strength buffs. This is one of the better setup cards in the game because if you populate the ground, even with fire from the pyro, it's gonna turn that all into strength buff. So this is why Greed is good. It's such a good ability card, and I agree with what you guys mentioned that it's probably the second best ability card in the game. Arguably, if you're not just considering movement but also impact and damage, it could be the best.
Hey, I mean, you can
yeah.
even pair it with a snaring vines and pick up those vines and get strength from it and extra movement.
Exactly. So, moving on to what I'd rank next. So I'm okay with the current order. I'm going to rank Myriad Blades. Myriad Blades, I consider a situational card as well, and I've been kind of deciding if I want to keep it in the C tier or move it up to B. So for now, I'll just put it on top of the C tier, ahead of Pennypinch. All right. So why am I considering this for the B tier? So why is it possibly a good card? A staple. So number one, if you ignore the attacks, the first and the second attack, it's technically a teleport 4 attack 2 weaken 1. So it's in line with what Soulthieve is bringing in terms of moving 4, in terms of reaching an enemy. Second of all, as we mentioned earlier, regarding Slice Twice and Pennypinch, similar to the Ranger again with Shroud is added to each of these instances of damage. So if for some reason you have Shroud and you have an enemy next to you at the start of your turn, this actually hits for a baseline of 18 damage, which is the highest baseline on any of the rogue cards. If you want to reach that with Shroud, but without having an enemy next to you to start your turn, because most likely if an enemy is starting beside you at the start of your turn, it means they just attacked you and removed your Shroud, outside of a miss card. So you'd have to rely on a movement trinket. So like, say for example, first turn, you do Slice Twice, gain Shroud, the enemy doesn't attack you, you have Shroud at the start of your second turn. If you use a movement trinket, you can move up to the first enemy, hit them for an attack 6 with Myriad Blades. You just keep teleporting around them, inflicting, like, if it's a single target, attack 18 plus Fate plus weaken 3. That's pretty much solid value. I'm just not sure if that's a card that you consider something to be bringing along every time, because it requires specific tech. I think I'm talking myself into putting it in the B tier. Okay, actually, yeah, I'm gonna put it in the B tier. So let's put it in the B tier, probably a low B, right, when we get to the overall rankings. But yeah, I think this has value if you're able to get into Act 3 already and have that movement trinket, alright, or even actually in the earlier acts. There are movement trinkets in the earlier acts. And then it has particular value as well in early Act 2, right, when you face a bunch of these mushrooms, the exploding ones. So because those have weak health, even without the Shroud, you can just kind of jump around, and this gives the rogue its most multi-target attack.
Yeah, I like Myriad Blades in B. I think that's a good spot for it because I like it early, but I always have issues with getting it set up perfectly where I'm getting more value than Slice Twice on it, because you need to start next to an enemy and you need to end next to an enemy unless you're using a trinket. And
you have a shroud to begin with a turn.
Yeah, and you want a shroud, otherwise it's not doing a whole lot of damage. Like the difference between 18 and 6 damage is pretty staggering. My other issue with it is actually related to the card I'm going to rank next, which is Smoke and Mirrors. And I'm debating where I want to put this one, because I get use out of it. It's a little more situational than you might expect from a card that gives blind. But it fills a similar role to Myriad Blades.
Right.
So I'll talk about it a little, and then maybe I'll figure out where I want it. So it also needs that setup where you're starting next to an enemy and you're probably ending next to an enemy. The difference is it does inflict blind. So even if you end your turn next to that same enemy, you're not going to get hit by them again, which is nice.
And there's a decoy.
Yeah, and if you use the decoy and you factor in all the damage, including passive in Act 3, that's going to come out to 17 damage, which is pretty good. One less than Myriad Blades, but you're also inflicting blind and creating a decoy that might take a hit for you. So I kind of see it as an upgrade to Myriad Blades in a lot of ways. Yeah. I think for that reason, because it does end up in my final deck, I think I probably put it... it's pretty close for me with Greed is Good, Soulthieve, and Smoke and Mirrors. I think the blind is more generally applicable. Oh, man. So these cards are all high A tier for me. I think each of them has a case for being, like, near the top of A tier, and Slice Twice is... I don't think I put it ahead of Slice Twice, because the positioning is its greatest limiter. I think the blind and the decoy are really valuable if you're trying not to take damage. Sometimes it'll even be the case where I don't have my shroud up, and I'm like, I need to crowd control this enemy in some way. I can't use sneak attack this turn. It's got to be Smoke and Mirrors. Like,
right.
I don't have the damage threshold right now, even with Soulthieve. I need something that I can do that's going to, like, distract them. So even if it's, like, you attack, do the blind, and teleport away and create the decoy, and you, like, end up somewhere where you can't get a second attack off, you can't even attack with a decoy, it's still a blind, and you're getting your shroud back, which is a really solid passive, as we've discussed in our passive tier list, link in the right. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it there for now. There are definitely arguments for why Greed is Good or Soulthieve maybe go ahead of it, but they're all really close for me, and I think Smoke and Mirrors, the blind effect, just edges them out a little bit. Even if you have to set it up a little, maybe use a movement trinket, it's often worth the spend just because you're creating more safety for your team, and like stalling a boss can be really big there. Stalling a revenant can be really big. Yeah,
we have our first 8-tier decoy.
I was about to say our decoy allegations have been broken, but I want to chime in. Do both of you boys remember when we ranked and stated the existence of the Ranger and Zuri ship in the Ranger video?
Mm-hmm.
The real ones know that the character that ships with the rogue is the bard. Because holy crap, this card becomes so much better when someone can switch you in place intentionally. Like, this is...
Yes.
Having a bard in a party with a rogue makes you feel so much better. Like, if you can get the bard and the rogue to kind of work together, like, and I love playing bard, as you know. So, if you can get a bard to two-step you right into the position that you want, it feels phenomenal. Because you can not only set up for a clean shot with something like Smoke and Mirrors, something like Myriad Blades, or even something like, I don't know, like a Soulthieve or a Slice Dice, you need one more movement to get there because you're a melee character. It's just nice to have a character whose intentional gimmick is trying to set people up in the positions that you want. It's very handy for these abilities to not only be trinket dependent, because as great as Terror Strike Drum is, which, don't get me wrong, it is a fantastic trinket, it's something that you ideally want to be able to use these cards more than once if you want to in your mission. You could also do something similar with stuff like Stargate and Arcanist, but at that point you should probably just drop the enemy you're targeting off a cliff. But Still, I think that this ability, I think in particular Smoke and Mirrors, it's a blind and a decoy, and I love my AI manipping. Like, it's a great card. You
I think I'm sorry,
What?
I was just going to mention because decoy, the reason I hate it for the Arcanist has much more to do with the fact that for Mirror Shatter, it's a 5 mana spend, and I'd rather just Gravity Nexus. And then Mirror Image is a 3 mana spend for just decoys. I actually like the decoys if you're just getting them from like the Fate cards for the Arcanist, because
For sure,
you're
right.
not investing tons of resources on your turn, like your turn basically with Mirror Image for a decoy. With Smoke and Mirrors, you get it for free. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, if the mana cost of those decoy cards was like 2 and 3, like that's legitimately a potential consideration, which is crazy because Nexus is so good. But anyways, I'm gonna be a little bit of a hater. Sorry, Rob. I think I'm gonna move Myriad Blades down to the top of C. I think
Sure, that's fine. I
the
was thinking
top
about that.
5 cards of the Rogue are so clearly defined that having anything else be there, like, yes, you could use it instead of S&M. Like, you do that instead of the mirrors, but man, it's a blind, which is almost a stun, and like potentially another attack going to waste because they're hitting a decoy instead. It's also something that, and maybe I'm just biased because I like that decoys work with Inspire, but I think in general there's like in most cases you'd always rather have Smoke and Mirrors than Myriad Blades. Like, yes, the weak is fine and it's good, but if you wanted something for bosses, you go with Soulthieve. If you wanted something that's gonna loosen the ability's offensive momentum, you go with Smoke and Mirrors instead. Like, Myriad Blades serves its function early on, but then by middle to late Act 2, it's not gonna last.
And frankly, when I'm at 3 card limit, I'm pretty sure as soon as I get what I forget the exact order, but I'm pretty sure it's like Slice twice, and then you get Sneak Attack 3rd or 4th, and then you get Greed is Good like 4th or 5th. At that point, I'm swapping out Myriad Blades because I'd rather have those 3 core, and then you get Smoke and Mirrors, and it's like, well, all right.
Yes, so to clarify, because it's on the wiki here, and I believe the wiki is right, the order is you get Greed is Good, then Sneak, then Smoke, and then we also get Soulthieve, and then Sense Weakness is actually last. So, and I'm fairly certain about that last bit at bare minimum, because I know Sense Weakness is a funny card to get last.
Well, I will double check actually, because when I was doing my playthrough for my hero guide on the Rogue, I wrote down all of the card orders that they get it. So it goes, yeah. So just to double check, it goes Isolate, Myriad Blades, obviously Slice Twice is first. Sneak Attack is
It's good.
yeah next 4th card or 5th card. Then Pennypinch, then Smoke and Mirrors, then Soulthieve, then Sense Weakness. Wow, Sense Weakness is the last card. So you actually get Soulthieve before the Prophet boss in Act 2. Neat, didn't know that.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so for me, I actually agreed with all of your comments about Myriad Blades, and those were just my same hesitations on it. I actually liked it before I got Smoke and Mirrors. So I was using it a lot as my big damage card because, again, we don't have Smoke and Mirrors anyway. So I'm using it before you get Smoke and Mirrors. And then I would just use it as an option later in Act 3 when, Greed is Good is not needed because you're just fighting a boss in a small map. So, you have a free card option. And if you can get the setup there, it has the highest base damage. But yeah, I agree with the points that, for the party, it would be more beneficial to use Smoke and Mirrors. And given what you said about Smoke and Mirrors, that's actually what I'm going to do on my turn. So I agree with your points, and I want to stress a couple of things. One, for some weird reason, the enemy AI kind of ignores the decoys created by the Arcanist. But the decoys of the Rogue get aggro. I don't know if that's your experience. You feel free to share your own experiences with that one. But in my experience, the Rogue decoy gets aggro, and then the decoys of the Arcanist don't. And I'm not talking about the fake decoys, but the ones from Mirror Image and Mirror Shatter. So I keep thinking about that, and again, I'm thinking, okay, that boosts the value of Smoke and Mirrors because you're technically nullifying 2 attacks, unlike Sneak Attack, which only nullifies 1. So if you can actually get this set up, you're actually nullifying 2. One will hit the decoy, and one will be blinded. So assuming you're not facing bosses or revenants, because those things have like 2 attacks in their sequences, so it's technically just 1, and then stun negates the whole turn. But for any enemies that are just having 1 attack, this technically Smoke and Mirrors technically wastes 2 actions from the enemies. I think it may not be high S, but I would consider putting it in the S tier. So I'm gonna move that up. That's my turn. So another one is because we also put Pyrotechnics in the S tier.
Okay.
And I consider Smoke and Mirrors the better card than Pyrotechnics.
Wow. Okay.
So,
interesting.
as Shoal mentioned earlier, there will be times that the enemy will attack you, you're going to lose Shroud, the enemy standing next to you, and you have to maintain that safety for the party. Smoke and Mirrors is the perfect card to do in that sequence. Okay, you can go ahead and attack the enemy, teleport, create a decoy, and then attack again. Whether you attack a different enemy or you just move away and then gain Shroud. So I think that's very useful in nullifying enemy actions, and the damage is decent again with Max Shroud, and again the blind is useful. Whether that's better than Pyrotechnics, maybe not, depending again on if you're just assessing Pyrotechnics in a vacuum versus assessing Pyrotechnics when it comes to factoring in being able to have like Wax chandeliers around, so those kinds of things. So for me, I'm factoring in also having Wax chandeliers around when having Smoke and Mirrors, so that's why I would consider it better than Pyrotechnics.
All right, couple quick points of orders. Sneak Attack, I find actually in those last 2 boss fights, because you don't have access to Shroud, it loses a little value just because you're probably getting hit, especially in the Ogre Queen Prophet one. So as great as it is, there are many situations where I'm leaning more on Smoke and Mirrors for my crowd control than Sneak Attack, and yeah, for that I can definitely see the argument for S tier. Another thing I want to note, just very general, I think Slice Twice is a good example. You're dealing like, what is it? 6 plus 6 is 12 plus 2, 14 damage if you have your Shroud up. Compare that to the Ranger's Volley, which is a similar concept.
So better than Volley.
Yeah, it does 2 damage plus 4, I think, is her max. So that's doing 6 plus 6 is 12. It's better than Volley. And Volley we ranked in the A tier. And I'm pretty sure Slice Twice, Soulthieve, and Smoke and Mirrors all have the potential to do like considerably more damage than that. So there is a real case for all of these cards being like low S tier for me. I mean, the Rogue is really good at dealing damage when he gets his setup, and it's not super hard a lot of the time to get his setup. It's really only the boss missions where I have that difficulty. So yeah, that's out of the way. I'm gonna leave Isolate for you, Comet. I'm gonna try and play Sense Weakness. So Rob mentioned doing duo runs, and there is a good duo setup with the Rogue Ranger, where the Ranger can take Scout Ahead and inflict expose 4 on an enemy, and Sense Weakness just
5.
Yeah, does tons of damage in that situation. Outside of that situation, I think it's much more reliable to be stealing buffs from an enemy with Soulthieve than depending on debuffs on an enemy with Sense Weakness. It's harder to guarantee that setup. I'm thinking like, Vanguard can do long haul, stuff like that, but it's rarer for me. I think Sense Weakness for me is probably, do I put it high C? I think the problem is I don't take it ever, because by the time I get it, I've already got access to cards I want. So you get
the last card.
Yeah, it's the last card. So I've already got all 5 of these, and I don't know that I'm ever swapping any of these for Sense Weakness. So yeah, actually, maybe I put it below Myriad Blades for that reason, because Myriad Blades, at least, I'll consider running early, especially if, like, I don't know, I'm doing a boss mission or something and I just need to dance around the boss and hit it 3 times. Yeah, I think that's probably where I end up putting it. I don't have a whole lot to say about it besides it's just unfortunately not as reliable as Soulthieve, and I don't like gambling on the weakness versus stealing buffs, which just feels good almost every time without exception.
Shoal. You ranked the card, yet in your heart, I still sense weakness.
Oh.
This card must be D tier, right?
Oh my god.
Like, okay, I get it. The Ranger Rogue stuff, the duo stuff, that's fantastic. That's great. I think that's a great pair. We are talking explicitly 4-player Shadowstone. And the 5 cards in the Rogue's kit are so unbelievably good. And you get them all earlier.
Except
How
Soulthieve.
could you run this?
Yeah.
Like,
In the interest
get
of
it.
time, I will move it down to D tier for you. I never run it.
Okay.
I know there is that one setup, which is why I was considering it the C tier, but yeah, I will put it in the D tier. I think that is where it belongs, and frankly, I might move one more card down there because unfortunately, I think this is going to end up somewhat like the Arcanist, where you have some really strong cards on one end, and
It's a
because of that,
complete list.
they crowd out the other ones. But yes, please.
All right. I guess I will lead to be ranking Isolate, which is ironic because Sense Weakness. Are we sure that's not the name of this card too? I think this card's also D tier. And I'm gonna give this a good parallel. It's above. Is it above? No,
Tough
it's
call.
below. It's below Sense Weakness. The reason that I'm putting this so low, is Rob. Rob, love you, buddy. You give the Pyro, in particular, an incredible amount of flack for anti-synergizing with Oozwax Chandelier, as you should, because the fires end up killing the minions that you create, and it ends up lowering your DPS and lowering the amount of defense you can gain from them misdirecting their attacks, etc. Isolate for the Rogue is in a similar vein to me, where in later game, especially with other aspects of the Rogue's kit that you want, notably using stuff like Chirp and other allies to gain your Shroud and keep it, this is actively debilitating and, like, goes against your best game plan. Where, if you're trying to set up Isolate for things, it is incorrect and you should probably do something else instead. Like, in the case of comparing this to something like Smoke and Mirrors, which is not only DPS, at bare minimum it's 6 with the decoy you create, it is also a blind and a potential double blind if they redirect their attacks to the wrong location. Sneak attack is straight up better than this because it's a guaranteed stun if you're able to keep it and set it up with the church setups as mentioned. And even stuff like Slice Twice early game, like, we've talked over and over about how multi-hits are better than single target attacks here. There's very few situations, even in early game, where taking Isolate is better than doing something else with the Rogue's kit in particular.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree. I think this is the worst card of the Rogue, especially with Soulthieve around. It's easy to compare the two,
Oh yeah.
where it's both move 4s, and then the other one is just a attack 6 at best, or attack 10 technically because you have the Shroud bonus. But Soulthieve is going to be attack, it's like 6, 9, 13 at minimum.
Yeah.
So, without factoring any of the buffs that you've stolen or fake cards, just factoring in the damage bonus from the buffs that you steal, and then also, Shroud and, the base damage. So, there's really no reason to use Isolate, except perhaps in the earliest game, but in that case, I'm still using Myriad Blades. Technically, Myriad Blades is a move 4, attack 2, week 1. So, again, depending on whatever bonus you get from Shroud. So, and it's a potential to hit multiple targets. So I really think this is the worst card. For my turn, however, I'm going to agree with Shoal and disagree with Comet. Or actually, it's technically Shoal who moved it down, but I'm going to
Yes.
move Sense Weakness up.
Oh.
So, I'm going to move Sense Weakness up to C tier again. And
Yep.
then I'm just thinking if it should be behind Myriad Blades or behind Pennypinch. So let me talk about first why. So we mentioned the need for debuffs for this card to work. Without debuffs, this card sucks. It is unusable. It's like Leapfrog on the Vanguard. It's very unwieldy. So, but when you do have those debuffs, it does a shit ton of damage. We already mentioned the Ranger who can hit it for an exposed 5, which gives it a plus 10 damage bonus. So if you have a plus 10, and then you have a base of 4, I believe, and then you have a base of 2 for the second attack, and then stack Shroud and all of those other damage, you're hitting 20 plus easily. So it can actually take over Myriad Blades as the best damage dealing card over Soulthieve as well, as long as you have that Ranger. Or we talked about 4-player Shadowstone. If you don't have a Ranger, which is likely because even in a 4-player party you can exclude one, another character who can help set this up is the Bear, the Berserker. The Berserker would bring it on, so you're gonna like this comment. To bring it on from the Berserker is gonna stack 7 debuffs on an enemy. You have the Provoke, and then 2 weakened 3s, which is 7, which brings this damage up to a plus 14 bonus to whatever else is the base of Sense Weakness. So again, you're hitting plus 20 easily.
You've sold
And
me.
a new one.
Rob, you gotta move it. You gotta move it above Myriad Blades. You've sold me. Bring it on,
Okay, so
synergy.
Okay, so above Myriad Blades then. So put it above Myriad Blades.
Can I briefly chime in something here?
Sure.
Rob, I believe I put Joel under this litmus test. Okay? I'm gonna do the same thing to you that I did before. Name me one mission in Act 3 where you take this and you believe it's the best option, and I will believe you.
I'll do you one better. When we do our Vanguard one-shot, I'll play the Rogue, and I'll use this card.
Okay. Then I will give you the chance to prove this card to me, because when I was initially looking at this and I was comparing it to the other character ults, other than maybe Brimstone Blast from Pyro, this is the worst. Like, it is pretty noticeably bad. And
yeah, it's very situational.
Yes. The point of BIO is nice. I think that that's fair. It's not enough to convince me, but I think it's nice. But go ahead.
Yeah, I would have ranked this lower, but we just got the Vanguard, and that's why I said I'm going to prove it in the one-shot. Because in the Vanguard, we got... Before, it's just the Ranger and the Berserker. There's just 2. So there's a high chance in a 4-player party, you have the Arcanist, Pyro, the Bard, and then the Rogue. And there's nobody who's going to help use Sense Weakness, which makes it trash, right? But now we have the Vanguard giving another option. The Vanguard has its ultimate, to the rescue, right? To the rescue stacks 4 beacons, which again, if you can have that out, you have a Vanguard in the party. So we're getting more allies now who can stack debuffs. So again, if the Vanguard is able to hit with To the Rescue, assuming the other players allow him to use the ultimate, that's another additional 8 damage. So again, for base compared to whatever, compared to the other cards, that's again going to allow it to breach Myriad Blades damage or even Soulthieve. I think this card is a classic example of low floor, very high ceiling. It requires very certain setups, which makes it highly situational, but we're getting more allies now who can actually help those situations happen more often. So we now have 3. We have the Vanguard, we have the Berserker, and then we have the Ranger. The others don't provide enough debuff counts to make it worth it. You kind of have to have at least 4 debuffs stacked before this becomes worthwhile to use. That's the reasoning why I consider putting it back on the S tier. Lastly, aside from again those stacking debuff damage, if we're just talking about reach cards, this is actually the longest reach card for the Rogue. It can actually reach 5 with a teleport. But of course, the requirement is that enemy should already be debuffed, whether that's from the Berserkers Provoke, the Ranger Scout Ahead, or the To the Rescue from the Vanguard. I think that's another edge for it of when you're going to use it. But again, as I said, highly situational, which is the thing is perfect to describe C tier. So turning it over now to Show.
I'm gonna move Pennypinch to D tier. Sorry,
Okay.
I never take this card. I can't keep it on the same tier as Sense Weakness and Myriad Blades. It's a never for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a strictly or slice twice. I'm never gonna take it, and the gold's generation that it offers is negligible considering Horde Heart, considering all the other things you can do to get gold going with your economy, with town upgrades. I just never need it. So
I think there's one last thing I want to chime in about Sense Week, because I have been convinced that I want to at least see it. I think in hindsight, a lot of the weapons actually work really well with Sense Week. I think, like, that slow weapon that everyone hates,
Verge
that
Dancer.
triggers all the damn time, is really nice actually with Sense Weakness. It's surprisingly okay when it comes to, like, setting up stuff like that. It also works.
You need the Bard, though.
What's that?
You need the Bard with that, the Verge Dancer, the weapon you're talking about.
Yeah.
For it to proc a lot of times, you need the Bard in the party. But
Well,
yeah,
listen,
again, it
I'm
gives
shooting them
enough,
already anyway, so so it's fine. But yes, I think Sense Weakness has its usage. I think it's fine. I think with Vanguard, actually, that was the argument that convinced me. Where if you could, as much as you would think it'd be like, oh wow, he's cheering his BIO mention, holy crap. It's actually the fact that the Vanguard's being so popular right now, and the Vanguard does have a lot of debuff effects, like the weakness that you mentioned from the old. So I think that that's a fairly good argument, and I really am excited to see how our opinions shift of this. I think the one last thing I want to ask you, Rob, as the Sense Weakness advocate, as much as I was the BIO advocate, the card you drop for this is Soulthieve in the situation you take it, right?
Correct.
Okay. I think that that's...
Oh wait, sorry. Or Greed is good. So if I'm doing a boss fight, if I have 4 cards, then I'm probably not taking it unless I have the specific party members I need in the party and they're willing to do the setups. Otherwise, like if I'm playing solo, then it's easy. But if I'm playing with, other people, they might want to do something else. So I'm not going to take it if I'm not playing a solo game.
Yeah.
If I have 5 cards, then I take it.
Last thing I want to mention regarding this is another great mention of Flummox Flux for the Arcanist, my beloved gamble card. Actually works kind of fun with Sense Weakness. So
Right.
Oh my god. The tech.
I know, the Third Eye Awakening, 2 cards in C tier that actually become not complete trash beside each other. But yeah, I think this is fine. I'm happy with this tier list the way it is. I do think that the top 5 of the meta for the Rogue is clearly defined, and even Myriad Blades and Sense Weakness have some fun tricks you can try, which is similar to how we ranked stuff like with the Berserker. So overall, satisfied with this.
Yep, me too. Thank you for joining us today. Let us know how we did. If you've got opinions about our tier list on the Rogue, leave a comment down below. Also, post your fan art. We want to see who you're shipping. Next week, we'll be ranking nobody, because we're doing a live play of the Vanguard, hopefully, schedules permitting, so stay tuned.
Hopefully this quenched the guy from the comments that really wanted the Rogue tier list already.
Thank you, Hydra005. Shout out to you again. In the meantime, we'll see you out in the Sunderlands.